Andy. So I'm Edward. Those of you that don't know me, we're going to talk about the purpose of this topic was goal setting when we planned it, and everyone does goal setting a little differently. What we do at my office is kind of evaluate our QuickBooks the year prior and ask how many properties we're able to do each month with the staff that we have. And then try to decide with that information, how many more staff do we need to add, how many more contractors do we need to have, and how much more money we spend in order to do more projects. The majority of my renovations are BRRRR rental properties, so we buy, rehab, rent, refinance. They're almost all add value situations where I'm buying a distressed property, usually in a depressed part of the city, and we're going to renovate it. The difference that I do versus some of the other landlords, and this is with the lender that I work with for my permanent refinancing, Lending One, I have building standards and practices where we are going to modernize the electrical, modernize the plumbing, put in the new HVAC systems, new windows, so that the house is brought to current standards. And that allows us to streamline through the refinance process with the bank. This is one we did last year that I'm particularly proud of. It's on Hanover, and it has a funny story with it that some of you got to experience at the meeting that Andy gave for part one of picking the right neighborhood. While we were in the meeting, I had a ring alert on my phone, and someone broke into this house during the meeting, stealing the stove. And I had to leave, dump my bill on Sean, who happily paid it for me, so that I could go there and watch the police and the fire trucks. So something to be said on picking different neighborhoods. I have had to put up with a couple of break-ins in some of my houses. It doesn't happen often, and those that know me, I have a lot of cameras in all of my properties, mostly to watch my employees, but they also serve as a way to protect the property. But this is one we are particularly proud of, and the reason that I ended up purchasing a bunch of them on Orange Avenue. And this is how we wanted to move forward this year with similar properties and similar renovations. This house is 682 square feet, 2-bed, 1 bath. It's a masonry constructed C&U house. If you're familiar with Hanover and Orange Avenue, there are a lot of them that were built in 1940 that are this style, this size. And now I own 7 of them of the same size and style. We had to do everything to this house. I bought it for $55,000 and I put $70,000 into it. We had to do the roof, the plumbing, the electrical, every single thing. And as we go through, we're seeing the before and afters, and you'll see the shutters here soon. And this is where having a group like this and being able to lean on one another, because it was Amanda's idea to put the shutters on there. And it really changed the curb appeal of this property. It took us 2 months to do this property, a $70,000 renovation, and that, for my crew, it typically takes about a month to do $35,000 worth of work. We try to renovate properties in the $30,000 bracket. We don't like to go over about $30,000, $40,000 on renovations. This one was one that I was able to see before I bought it, and I knew it was going to cost roughly $50,000 to renovate it. We did have overages, one of those doing to a contractor that we hired, first contractor we used in a long time that didn't do a good job. This property rented for $1,200 a month back in January, rented it in January. We finished it during the Thanksgiving, Christmas space, which is why it took so long to rent it, and 3 weeks unrented attracted the wrong attention on this one. We did a lot of high design with it. This was our flagship of these projects. In most of my properties, I removed the masonry chimneys and replaced the heating systems with high efficiency systems that don't require a masonry venting, so that we can locate it where we like. In this case, we did locate the system in the crawl space. In the other 4 that we're working on now, we moved them up into the attic. We also switched to tankless hot water heaters last year. and found that they were considerably easier to install and much easier to locate. So when you're pulling a permit, which I know not everyone does, we unfortunately had to pull a permit on this property, and you cannot have an obstruction around your breaker box, so we had to move the breaker box outside, and we couldn't have obstructions directly around the water heater, and because it was gas, we had to have a certain amount of clearance above it to get the venting right. So that's why we ended up doing a tankless system that we mounted outside on the house.
And it doesn't freeze?
No, the tankless system doesn't freeze, and the power was out for a few hours, and it was freezing weather, and we had no freezing on it. So it's got some system built in to prevent it from freezing. This house, we also learned there is no natural gas on that strip of Hanover by Lucy Addison. So we had to do propane with Davenport Energy. This was the first one we ever did propane in, and now we have 3 more with propane.
Propane better than natural gas?
Propane burns hotter than natural gas and more efficiently than natural gas, but it is not greener than natural gas because it is a byproduct of either getting oil or refining oil.
Why you have tanks for free, right?
Davenport provided the tanks. They don't charge for the tanks if you're having them fill them up.
Are you staging this for pictures, Edwin?
What's that?
Are you staging them for print photos?
So I did, and I would not recommend it. So we are still staging some of our properties because it allows me to put pictures up on Facebook and social media that get shared a lot. We did put this one up on Zillow with the staged pictures, and I actually had more people confused that it was a furnished rental than a standard rental. So we had to redo the pictures without the furniture. That's the chimney that we had to take out.
And were those professional pictures or did you take those yourself?
I take the pictures myself.
They look good.
Thank you. It takes a lot of time. I take a lot of pictures. So these are the numbers on this house. We purchased it for $55,000, renovated it for $70,000. It appraised for $150,000. The cash to close, I ended up coming up with I had to come up with about $8,000 in cash to close, making the cash on cash return 26% when it was done, and the stabilized rent is at 1.18 debt to service ratio. And this was another one that we did with Lending One when we refinanced it. So is the BRRRR method dead? I don't think it is, because it's a 26% return on my money, and I don't think that you can get that in the stock market right now.
Can you give me an overview?
Yep. The top number up here is the cash to close. So after the refinance mortgage was in place, I had to bring $8,139 to the table to close. My mortgage payment on this house is $880 a month. Taxes are $64, insurance is $75. The total monthly payment is $1,019 per month. That's an annual cost to own this property of $12,236 a year. We rented it for $1,200 a month. Annual gross income of $14,400, and our net income on this is $2,163 a year. We were bringing in about $54,000 per month in rental income. And these numbers up here at the top are for the amount of properties that I currently own and what I expect to own throughout the year, adding 3 properties per month, because right now with my crew we can purchase and rehab 3 properties per month.
Edward,
Yeah,
you could help that speaker sitting up on a chair?
this one here,
Yeah.
you having trouble hearing back there?
It's not like real clear. How about that might help? Yeah, well, right.
The month, if we stick to the $35,000 per month. So with with the crew members that I have, we can do about $35,000 to $40,000 worth of rehab work in 1 month cycle. So we try to purchase properties that we can fix for about $35,000, $40,000. In this case, this one we knew was going to take longer. When I purchased it, they were not a lot of properties coming in the door, and it needed more work than what I would have preferred it needed for the price that it was going to be. But because the opportunity was there, we decided to purchase it. But we do set up, all of our goals are set up on purchasing 3 properties per month. So what I have up here is called our cash flow chart. This is the chart that we use to analyze. Yes, David?
Going back to your Hanover house,
Uh-huh.
you have $2,000 a year in profit. Is that typical for what you have?
That's about typical. So I cash flow about $225 to $275 a month on average per unit when it's stabilized.
Okay.
And that usually is about 1.15 on the debt service ratio. Yep, Charles?
Are there any programs in the city that would help you in some of these rundown areas or something?
We get benefit from, so Hanover hasn't finished its, we haven't gotten the tax abatement yet, but the taxes will go down on that property. That's why we have to pull a permit, is to get the tax abatement program, which is, if you're not pulling permits, you're not going to be eligible to get it anyway. But if you're working in the depressed parts of Northwest, the depressed parts of Southeast, you have the opportunity to tap into the tax abatement program, which can drastically reduce your taxes. And I know a lot of you have received documents in the mail recently that said your taxes went up. Well, I didn't. My taxes are locked in on the majority of my properties because we use the tax abatement program.
How much down does it go?
It depends on the amount of work you do. Tony, do you remember the...
Yeah, it's the amount of rehab.
Yeah, so like, we, on this one, are supposed to be eligible to get the tax value of this property 6 years ago, and we would get to keep that for 5 years.
And how much less percentage-wise do you think that is?
So like
Oh.
on his property where it says $75, the first 5 years the $75 is wiped out. Then it's prorated years 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 10 years.
Especially right now, I know people in Northwest that have told me that they have gotten tax increases of 100%. And it's not a lot when you're talking about a property in Northwest that's valued at $15,000, but we didn't receive those tax notices. David, what do you know on average what your properties went up by in taxes? Was it 30%?
37% for the past 2 years.
Yeah, so that's.
I had one that went up 82.
That was over for 2 years.
And did you renovate those properties? Could they have had the tax abatement program had you chosen to pull a permit?
Not to your standards, yes, but not to your standards.
So you don't have to renovate to my standards. The design and all that they don't care about. It's things like the windows, the electrical. They're trying to get you to modernize the property. And if you're going to do it and you're going to spend the money anyway, the pulling of the permit is really not that big of a deal. They're not as bad, or at least I don't find them to be as bad to work with. I am a licensed contractor, so that helps me out a lot. I can pull my own permits. I know through the owner affidavit, you can still pull a lot of permits yourself as landlords, but there are some that you won't be able to pull unless you have a contractor. But just the fact that David's saying that he's seeing 30% over 2 years on some of, on what? 37% over 2 years. That's increases that we did not have to realize. Now, eventually we will, but for some of them, so I've got properties on 10th Street that had 10 years worth of tax abatement. Now, from what I understand, you cannot get the 10 years anymore. Is that right?
Down to 7.
Yeah, it's down. It's the 7. So you can get the 5 or the 7 now, which is 7 years is a long time of decreased taxes, especially if Roanoke continues to increase in value the way it's been. Our cash flow sheet, and I have this for, so I have 3 companies that operate within my umbrella. I have Physical Investments Inc., which is the holding company that I purchase my properties in. I have REI Contracting, which is the contracting company that I am licensed through, and we do the majority of our business through and run all of our renovations through. And then I have a new addition to our company, which is Passive Income Management, through a partnership that we have recently finalized. We are now offering management services to both my company and to some other companies for managing property and other forms of passive income. So those are the three businesses that operate into my shell, and every single one of them has a cash flow analysis chart. The easiest ones are to do are like physical investments, because I don't have employees within physical investments. So this blue part up here are my employee sections. Yes, David?
Does this mean you're gonna be a property manager?
Well, I am going to be offering property management services. It's I am not a licensed broker, so the way that our system works, passive income management, the money comes in through us, we direct deposit all of the money into the owner's bank account. We send a bill for services rendered that amounts to $100 a month per property. It's a minimum of 10 properties. Unless there's also, we also manage notes and deed of trust and other forms of investment products for other people. Anything where they're receiving passive income and they need it documented within QuickBooks and they need the information put back out. One of the benefits as we've done this partnership, they wanted the ability for me to get the refinances done through Lending One and through the closing houses I'm used to. So by being a member of Passive Income Management, when they purchase a property, I handle renovations through my company, I handle the holdings through my company, and then I handle the refinances for them. So it makes it a streamlined process for other people that are in the BRRRR rental strategy. It wouldn't work for everybody. This one that we're looking at is Physical Investments, and Physical Investments Inc., which is owned by me. I don't have employees, I don't pay a salary to myself, so I don't have anything filled out in the salary and 401k sections, but when we go through my other companies, you'll see the costs that I have for my 401k and my health care for my employees that we have to expect to spend every single week. Physical Investments, number one costs are its mortgages and its debts that it services. We do have office rent that we include in here, and this is where we are planning on moving to a new office. And part of the January meeting was plugging in how much money each company was going to have to split in order to afford that new office. So as of March, or as of April, Physical Investments will have to start chipping in $1,500 a month in office space when we move to our new space. And as we go through the other ones, you'll see every company does that, but it's important to have your static costs that you can predict out so that you can see how much money you bring in each company to still generate profit. The only real expenditures that Physical Investments suffers is the planned capital improvements, which would be like our rehabs. So we knew when we bought a house, 2822 10th Street, and we closed on it in December. So the December cash flow for 2023 showed a $30,000 capital, showed a $30,000 worth of cash coming in, having investor funds. So we bring money in through rental income, through our BRRRR cash out refinances, and through the investors that I solicit for my projects. So 2822 10th Street is one that we were working on at the end of last year, and in the December 2023 cash flow, we had $30,000 in for a renovation on that $60,000 renovated project, and we know that we're going to take in, or did take in, another $30,000 on the same project. Roll is really fictitious. This is what we have planned based on my expectations of properties purchased and expectation of refinances closed. And as of January of this year, I was spending $34,125 per month on mortgage payments, $1,200 per month on unsecured loan payments. Property taxes were $3,150, hazard insurance was $3,800, specialty insurance, which is typically flood insurance, was $300, and property management, which we pay to ourselves, is $2,250. As we add properties, obviously the mortgages and the insurances are going up. And in April, we anticipate having 51 properties. That would be $61,200 per month, $61,200 per month in rental income, with $38,000 in mortgages, and the totals, net cash flow, we would expect to see $12,070 per month in net cash flow with 51 properties. So we take these expectations of property, and then I tell my estimator and my project manager how many I want to buy, and they have to help produce these documents, which are for this is for REI Contracting Inc. So in order to accomplish that type of projects, those revenues, we needed to have at least one project manager. He needs an assistant, so we're hiring an assistant, and we needed a manager, which is going to be our estimator. And we knew we were going to have to pay their 401k, and we have to start contributing into their health care plan. And we started offering health care this year. And that was the beginning of January. We plugged in the numbers so we could figure out how we could offer health care. REI Contracting, because it generates more money than the other ones, spends more money on the office rent, even though we all share the same office. REI Contracting will be spending $2,000 a month on that office. 2 employees, we are paying our workers' compensation insurance and our general liability insurance. And in order to get all the work done, we need the workers. And we are almost fully staffed in where I expected to be in hiring. I've got my MEP technician, I've got my master carpenter. I am still looking for another person with framing and carpentry or plumbing skills. If you know anybody that's generally inclined in construction that's looking for a job, I pay $30 an hour. I knew we were going to have to buy 2 new company vehicles, and I had to expect to spend money on subcontractors based on the amount of work we did last year. My anticipation on contractor spend is about $24,000 per month. Passive income management.
It doesn't sound very passive.
I want to go back real quick to, I forgot the most important top bar. This is for those of you that are working on projects and you are struggling with keeping the cash in the bank. This is the most important piece, because what it's saying here is I started the year with $125,000 in cash in the bank account, and then we were down to 98, 76, up to 94, down to 41. This is what I spend most of my day looking at as we purchase properties. When I close on a property, what does it do to my cash flow? Where does it take these numbers? And can we afford to hold on to that property while we're doing any of the other renovations that we're doing? And most of the time when I tell someone that I can't buy something and it's not due to price, it is because I plugged information into this and I saw that we were going to get into a cash flow short and I didn't know how we were going to shore it up.
What do you call that, Mark?
What's that?
What is the title for that?
I call it my cash flow analysis. And I think Amanda can share this on Facebook. I'll share a link to this Excel. I will tell you, I've made this. I'm not an Excel expert, so I would not, I would use it sparingly with a grain of salt. Yes, Charles?
Where does this money come from? Is it just cash flow, or people investing? Or
Cocaine.
loans, or what?
So it's a combination of both. So we have rental income, we have the cash out that we get at the end of the project that we keep after we pay back any liens that we have on the property. And a lien is typically going to mean that we have an investor on it. And the investor funds here, this is money that if if I'm renovating a property and I need $30,000, I call up Investor One and say, hey, I've got this property, this is how much I currently owe on it, this is what I want to do to it, and this is the information that says that it's going to be worth XYZ when I'm done. Can I borrow $30,000? They say yes. Their money plugs in to do that renovation. And a lot of the times when we're asking for money on a renovation, it's in the process of the renovation, so we're able to show what we're doing while we're going through it.
What kind of interest?
I will pay, and a lot of investors name their own rates, but lately I've been paying 12% APR interest only, 3% on the finance charge, and I usually will throw in an administration fee unless they're asking me to do all the administrative work. So some of my investors are seasoned real estate folks, like people in this room, that know how to do all of their own document management. They don't need my people to do taxes at the end of the year. They don't need interest statements from me. So they get a little more interest. I have other investors that I call my in-house investors, where their money comes into my control and we are churning it for them, and I am preparing all of their documents, all of their tax documents. I work with their accountant, I work with their wealth managers. In that case, I pay them a little less. I usually won't pay them points because we are more or less acting as the hard money lender for them. So it's an a la carte service. If you are, you or someone you know wanted to invest $30,000 or more dollars, we would be happy to make an offer. I have paid as high as 15%. That really, it's not as much lately since there's more people with money that are looking to invest. Supply and demand drive the price. Companies and how to analyze one and how to decide it's properly staffed. When I was approached with the opportunity to inject these, we're going to have a big announcement for it, but it was two people that wanted to start a property management business, and they were not brokers. They needed a way to do it. I was happy to invest the money into the lawyers to see what they could come up with and develop a system that would not require a broker's license, which was not as hard as we thought it was. As long as you're not touching the money, you are not in that black zone of violating the law. As long as the money is going directly from the tenant clicking pay to the owner's bank account, the broker's license becomes negated. Yes, David?
Do you lease the property?
Yes, we lease the property. We photograph it. You have to have a lease. We can't draft a lease for you, but we can put you with somebody if you don't have a lease to prepare one. We take the lease, load it into DoorLoop, which software we're using now, which has an autofill with DocuSign, so that they are, when they take their background check, all their personal information directly goes over to the lease, and then they sign it electronically. But we list the property. When someone becomes a member of Passive Income Management, especially a real estate investor, there's an interview process. We look at the property, we make sure it fits the expectations that we have for quality control, and make sure that it's going to be a good fit for client relationships. And then we make the suggestion on what the best possible rent is for that property. I insist on taking my own pictures. There is a picture package that comes with the onboarding, and we do our own bios, we list it ourselves. I find that, and I a lot of times personally show it. I am currently trying to hire someone to train. One of the touches that I think I have, is the ability to convey the neighborhood safety and to younger people that it's not, that Northwest and Southeast Roanoke are not what they were 15 years ago. So that's all the service that comes with that, is our ability to list the property. Where we were not going to be able to provide the quality of service that I already provide to the tenants. I look at my business as very importantly, I have two customers. I service my investors, and I service the property owners, and I service the tenants. And I want both of them to be happy with the services that they are getting. And I do not want them to feel that they don't get attention. As we researched it, what we learned is a two-man team can handle 200 doors in a geographical region. So as we scaled doors, we scale employees. So I've already hired my first property manager. I'm going to be looking for my next property manager, and the last person I plan to hire is my business developer. And by the end of this year, if everything goes to plan, I hope to be managing 400 units within Roanoke. And I hope those to be Burr individuals that are purchasing property, that want to continue to purchase property. But it would be for anyone that's looking to let go of it and see the value in everything that we're going to offer, where we really are a income management, financial management product, where we're going to prepare the QuickBooks on your behalf. We're going to handle the accounting on your behalf, so that at the end of the year we can say this is how profitable your business was, the same way that we would say it about our business, in hopes that we can give the documents and knowledge to people to go out and get investors and grow their own business. So as a property management, we have no cost of goods sold other than the service that we sell. And I expect it to be a pretty lean year, as advertising and overhead costs will run over profits. But it gives, this up here is the alert. You can type any number you want into this, so if you do get this Excel sheet and you wanted to play with it, whatever number you put in here, if it gets to that number or less, it makes it red, so that you can be alerted. With physical investments, my alert's $25,000. If we're dropping below that, it makes it red. In this company, it's $1,000, because as you can see, I expect to have very little actual cash until we stabilize at the end of the year, if we scale to the point that we expect to do. We keep them within our circle. So the wholesalers that I work with, if they send me a deal and I can't move on that deal, the people that are within my circle, I immediately recommend to that wholesaler to contact. Unfortunately for you, you know all the same wholesalers I do, so you might not see many new ones. But yes, I would encourage anything, because obviously the more units you add, the more we manage and the more services we do. The idea behind everything I do is vertical integration, and vertical integration works as a cost control measure, where I can control the management, the construction, and the holding of the properties. It also allows for quality control, and it is a self-feeding funnel of leads. I get leads from lenders, I get property leads from wholesalers, I get them from tenants, I get them from people we manage and people we do business with. So anything we can do to add more services into our household that is within property, within real estate, so that I am the first to hear about a property that comes up for sale. That is the number one reason for the vertical integration. It's actually the number one reason I've been in my current office so long, is the proximity to closing houses, so that when people are liquidating, I know about it. The name of the game is knowledge. QuickBooks, and I see how much money did I pay to private investors versus commercial investors, and I see that I need to capture more private investors. We can use information and use the interest and use the collected data to try and market directly into private investor markets. Yes, Charles?
You know, you were talking to me a while back about breaking ground in Garden City. How does, for building apartment units, how does that figure into this, or does, is it
The
separate?
Garden City project does not figure into this, because when it breaks ground, it will be its own separate company. More than likely, I will not do most of, if any, of the work on that project. So Charles and I talked about, I have some land in Garden City, right on Garden City Boulevard, and I am going to be building townhomes there. We just got the rezoning finally approved. For those of you that want to get into up development, it is a very slow game, and there's a lot of money you spend before you even dig into the earth. But we are going to be building those townhomes. It's going to be 30 townhomes, and I will more than likely hire a general contractor, someone like Lionberger, to do that work. Just because if I plug that into here, what it's going to show me is my people will be off of all of the jobs that I could buy. I could not purchase any more property until that was done, and it could be a year-long project. and I will not net the same profits that I do, because as a remodeler, as a contractor, I am not a new construction contractor. I have done up builds, but I am not equipped with a crew where I would build a $10 million project.
Do you use
Money and got us to where we're at now. What I'll do after I get the plans back is I start to go to more, they are private investors, but more business-like private investors, those that operate hard money businesses, and say, I'm gonna need $1 million for this phase in these amount of increments. So I wouldn't ask for someone for $1 million all up front, but I would say this project, phase one, is gonna be broken out into these increments of 250, 250, and 500,000. And these are going to be the times we're going to have to release these funds. And it might be one private lender, it might be a combination of a few different lenders. Once you have about 20% of the cost covered, then the banks feel more comfortable to bring in money on their end. So we expect to do the up builds, get most of the framework in, and then have the bank come in behind to start bridging in the rest. But as I've learned, it's a very involved process of how you come up with the cost that it's going to be, how you come up with all the plans, the zoning, street configuration, which is not something that I ever thought about before. I have worked with Hughes and Associates and Balser and Associates on this project. And I can see, this is the important number. What's the debt to service ratio going to be? What's the cash on cash return going to be? And I have one of these for every property. If I am going to try to take down something like a big apartment building, and I know that I'm going to absorb a lot of my, I'm going to absorb a lot of my cash doing that, these are things I have lined up to show to my investors to say, hey, I need an injection of cash for this period of time, and this is how I'm going to get you your money back. Because these are functioning properties that need to get from point A to point B. Once they've made it to point B, they do refinance, they do exit them out. So I find a lot of people in this business do a lot of it's a lot in their head. They can do a lot of the stuff in their head. They view a lot of notebooks and paper. They don't have a structure. And when you are talking about, you're already spending $40,000 a month in mortgages, or you're spending something, but now you're going to go to somebody and say, you're not just saying, I need money for a project, I need money to bridge my business costs in order to get to the profits of projects I'm doing. If you want to go and approach an investor for that, you want to have all the documents in order that explain what you're doing, why you're doing this, why does it make sense to you? Not that you're just walking up and saying, hey, this is a really good deal, help me out with this is a really good deal. Because I feel like that's a lot of the way people approach lenders in this business is, oh, I know it's a good deal because Zillow said it's a good deal. Or my buddy's brother who's never sold a piece of real estate in his life said it was a good deal.
already fixed up, you don't need money, right?
The ones that I've already fixed up, we paid them off. Or are you asking when I buy it?
Yeah, after, out of these 45 houses, you only need money or investors for 5 of them, right?
Well, all 45 properties I own, I needed investors to get all of them. So
No, but once they're fixed up.
then it's just a traditional bank.
Yeah, and so now you have a loan and a house that pays for itself, right?
Yes.
He pays the rest of all.
Yeah. After we finish a project and it's considered stabilized, so it's fully renovated, we've rented it, usually I'm going to have 1 month worth of rent collected, and then I'm going to go to Lending One and I'm going to refinance the property. It takes about 14 days to refinance a property. The seasoning period is 90 days, which I usually can cover in the rehab and renting part of it. But then once they get involved, they pay off all of mine. And lately, I have had usually 3 mortgages on a house when I have investors on a property, and then Lending One pays them off and they become the primary mortgage. So I don't know how many other people have to deal with the 70-80% loan to value on cash outs. I have stopped asking for cash outs altogether. Lending One doesn't really want to give them out right now. They will. And if you've got, I don't personally guarantee loans, but they do allow you to personally guarantee. If you have a 720 or better credit score, you can still get 80% loan to value cash outs from Lending One, and they're advertising 7.5% for 720 credit scores. If you have a 750, you got whole other doors unlocked that they're willing to do.
But that's for a year lease.
Yeah, so they only do year leases. You can't have a furnished or what do they call it, transient. It can't be a transient property. But once you refinance it once, you get a 1-year lease, you rent it for a year, then they move out, you can turn it into a transient property, they don't care.
So you need about 100,000 or so, 130,000 investment.
And getting his finance charges, because if my money could be doing work for me in any one of my other wealth products, I am diversified into stock products and other 401k type investments. So it's basically the same cost for me as a business owner, because I'm going to pay myself the same fees that I would pay Blue Ocean to do business with them. And a lot of people don't look at things that way. There are a lot of contractors in here that do work on their own houses and they consider themselves saving money. I consider you losing money. Yep.
So I know you're real big on debt, using other people's money to kind of increase your portfolio. I know other people that do not believe in debt, they believe in cash. They believe that makes them more profitable. What is your stance on how using other people's money helps you grow, paying all the hard money fees, taking that angle helps you grow and accelerate your business compared to the everything you cash, everything you cash?
I think so what Sean asked is there are multiple different types of investors in this room. Those that do it with a lot of cash, they don't use loans, and those like me that utilize loans. When I first got into this business, the only way to do it was going to be owner financing. That was how I got almost all of the portfolio I started with, was finding people that were willing to owner finance to me. In the business of owner financing, the way I got good at it was learning how to pitch it. As I learned how to pitch owner financing, I learned how to pitch being an investor. So organically, my business grew to the people that had owner financed me properties. I went back to and said, be my investors. And that's how I ended up with these people that I had. And could you amass the amount of properties that I have without utilizing debt? I do not know if you could. I do not see a way to do it. Could you amass a portfolio that you could be comfortable living on and would provide you stability in life without debt? Yes, you could. I was a high earning individual before I quit my last job, and I've always been a fairly hard worker, and I always worked commission. I've only ever had one job that I actually was paid a salary. Every other job I've worked, I've been 100% commission, and I have always been a pretty good hustler on my commissions. So I could have continued to work in a commission-only environment, paid cash for my properties, and I do not believe I would own more than maybe 10 right now, but they would be 10 paid off properties and they would not be fixed up to the way they're fixed up right now. They would be much more standard rental property, but you're still talking about 10 properties that should rent for on average $1,000 a month. That's $10,000 a month, $120,000 a year. That's nothing to shake a stick at. You know, it's good money, but it's not 45. I visualize a business with my company, and again, it was organic as I learned how to pitch it, and being in sales, if I can pitch something, if I can pitch to you, Sean, to lend me $10,000, I can pitch to Merrill Lynch to lend me $10 million. It's the same idea, it's just different tools that you use for the product.
What is your goal for?
Can you say that again?
Old farts.
Can you say that again?
28.
I am 28, and I feel old at 28.
And when did you buy your first one?
I bought the first flip that I ever did, I was 17 when we closed on it. The first rental that I bought, I was 19 when we bought it. So we couldn't use real champagne either time at the closing.
How did you do that at 17? You're not even legal.
What's that?
How did you do that at 17?
So the first flip I did, and I tell the stories, is my college into this, and it cost me $13,000. I won't say who I did it with, but I was coming to a group like this that met at a Mexican restaurant on Williamson Road, and I met somebody that I thought was very intelligent and very willing to help me do a first property. Contracts. If it's not in writing, it did not happen. I don't care if they're your friends, your family, your buddy, your wife, your uncle, I don't care. If you didn't put it in writing, you will regret it. And I did. I regretted it for $13,500 on my first flip. And they kept all the money. So we're working with someone I shouldn't have worked with. That's how I did it. But it was cheaper than college.
That's what I was just gonna say.
True.
And those of you that have had the pleasure or displeasure of working with me in an administrative setting or ever having to sell me a property can know how anal I can be about my contracts, about my closings, about my titles, because I am once burned and twice concerned.